Hello and welcome to a very, very blustery September day in the UK because it is a very autumnal lemons this time round.
It's a bit blowy.
Yeah, unfortunately we have managed to just stage this while it's stopped raining because, as you might be able to tell, it has been tipping it down. So we have a new car to introduce.
Ta-da! It's a car! Literally! A car! It does nothing else but get you places.
So this is what me and Lawrie bought for Trev, which is Suzuki Swift, and Morgan is already very jealous.
Yeah, so last time you saw me, I was actually quite happy with my purchase, or with the purchase they got me, but unfortunately, having driven it a couple of times, it has got a major problem now. The clutch is slipping like crazy, so... And I think Trev's car is working fine, isn't it?
Yes, the only problem with Trev's car is it is only a 50 horsepower 3-cylinder, so we're not quite sure why Morgan is so annoyed with it.
Because I can only use about 30 horsepower.
So, as you might be able to tell, we are unfortunately missing someone who is rather typically late, so we're hoping that the glorious leader will turn up at some point today.
Oh no.
I thought he wasn't actually going to make that small, like...
Oh no, he hasn't, has
he?
Morgan, what is it?
Oh, for God's sake.
He shouldn't be quite this proud with this absolute turd he has managed to pick up.
I have one, ladies and gentlemen.
No, you have not. It's beige.
No. It has red parts. It is both beige and red, grey,
And brown.
And filler. It has been, there are no problems with my car whatsoever.
It's not that it only got an MOT yesterday or anything of the sort.
No, it had an MOT 2 days ago. It just didn't have any brakes until this morning.
It is the morning of Lemons 2.0 and we are ready. Kind of ready. It's... I've told the others I'm going to be there soon.
I'm just sort of reading the tax disc. It says 05 on it, Lawrie.
Yes, there is no record on the DVLA's website of this having an MOT. It's registered, but they have no history for it, which means at the very, very latest, it's 2005, it was last on the road. And because it didn't have any brakes until this morning, this is 100% untested.
Yes, and we're driving up to the Peak, not the Peak District.
To the Lake District.
To the Dales and the Lake District. All up north, basically. So, welcome to Lemons 2.0. We hope you're going to enjoy it.
Save me.
And if it wasn't clear enough from our vehicle selection, our £500 cars this time around were set with an engine size limit of 1.4 litres. So off we set on the long drive up north. But it wasn't too long before our ramshackle convoy experienced our first problems.
Everything might look fine in the Reliant, and you may be thinking, Lawrie, you have picked a wonderful little machine for this trip. Clearly, there are no issues with it whatsoever. And, well, you'd be wrong. The most notably with this is, despite the fact that I have bought a brand new battery and put this on it, during the time it's taken me and Trev to restore it, the battery's got a little bit flat, which is slightly problematic because not that long ago, as we were driving along these lovely windy roads, we came to a T-junction and it was on a slight hill, and on that slight hill I didn't give it quite enough oomph and the Reliant stalled. No problem, I hear you cry, you just turn the key and it starts again. Well, yes, that's also what I thought. Turn the key, car start, happy days. No, the Reliant just went, look. But it's okay because it's so small and light that the others hopped out, gave it a slight push, and away we went. Which is super because it's such a small and light car that bump starting it is easy. It's fine. So when we stopped at a town for lunch, I decided the most logical thing to do would be to buy a new battery to replace the one that was obviously knackered. And over the half hour or so that we were sat for lunch, I had a bit of a research and managed to find somewhere that stopped the ride-on lawnmower sized battery that this thing needs. And when we walked back to the car, I put the key in the ignition expecting to have to give it a push to start it. But it started up right away, no problems. So I assumed that at some point the cable had just wiggled loose. Everything will wiggle, make sure everything was tight, and assumed it was good, and away we went. obviously problem solved, no need to buy a new battery. Or so we thought. And as it was, it turned out that I wasn't the only person that was having battery problems. There is absolutely no fuel. And now making the second occasion of lemons. It's convenient that you don't film your own breakdown, isn't it?
Yeah,
No.
I was going to say that.
Well, it wasn't really convenient. I did just say for the second time, Morgan's now broken down, joining the club of cars that won't start. Do you got cables? Because I've got them in the back of mine.
No. Just get a bit closer.
Yeah, keep going.
Closer.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going.
That's it.
Keep going. Keep going.
And just like that. Sorry, I was thinking, oh god, what happened? Now this won't start.
Will it start? But it won't. But it won't.
As we're filming this little adventure, the UK is in the middle of a fuel crisis. And this is a little bit of an issue when one is planning a road trip, travelling from one side of the country to basically the other and going very north. Because generally on road trips, one does require fuel. To be honest, we had thought about maybe trying to cancel and delay this trip because we weren't really sure what it was going to be like. The other big problem that I personally have is that my wonderful little car here, that is perfect in every single way, this doesn't have a working fuel gauge. So in order to work out when I'm going to need fuel, I'm having to count the miles. But because of the way that this car has only recently returned to the road, well, I have absolutely no idea what it will actually do to a tank. So I'm estimating in this thing that I should get around 200 miles per tank. So when I get to being close to the 200 mile mark, I'll probably want to go and investigate getting some more fuel. And at the moment, I think I'm fine. I've got at least 50 miles in the tank before I need to worry, which is good. And Matt is good. And Trev, well, Trev is also fine with the amount of fuel that he has in his car, which of course then leaves one particular member, Morgan. Because Morgan has two methods of driving, either foot off the accelerator and on the brake, or foot fully on the accelerator to try and persuade the car to go faster, Morgan has no fuel. Morgan is relatively worried about the concept that Morgan has no fuel. And as Morgan's worried, of course, the rest of us are somewhat worried. I'm worried not because Morgan's going to run out of fuel. That doesn't really concern me. What worries me is that as a group, we've decided the best bet of finding some fuel is to go onto the dual carriageway. Now, when this trip was envisioned, the idea was to do it all on the back roads, and one of the reasons that I acquired Tumble here, as I've named it, was on the idea that I wouldn't have to take it onto a dual carriageway. Because the concept of taking this out onto a dual carriageway terrifies me. I don't know what it will do. I've never driven it any distance. It's completely untested at this point. And so, I don't even know how fast it will go. These are my main problems. I don't know how fast it will go. I don't know if it's capable of it. And 3 wheels at 60, 70 sounds terrifying. So we have at least come to an agreement that they won't leave me behind and they will protect me. I'll have a car in front and a car behind. And you know what? It doesn't make me feel any better at all. Old formation, old formation. Nicely done, nicely done. I'm excited to return to Hull. The last time I came here, it was a miserable, wet day, and I'd just come back from the south of France, and I thought it was the grimmest place on earth. So I'm excited to see if it is still the grimmest place on earth. such a horrible noise under load. Why is it making that noise? It sounds like an engine about to fall apart. What a view though! Oh god, didn't like that. I am glad there is no wind up here because this would be horrendous if it was windy. Gee, suddenly I feel so much more relaxed about it all. Hiya! Let's just tap it there. Does that make the right noise? Try again. That made the right noise. That worked. Yeah, little Robin. Well, it's the one that came after the famous Robin Reliant. Yeah, it's been off the road since before 2005. It's its first trip, but they fixed it this morning at the garage. Thank you.
So, guess whose battery wants to go and start? Do you want to off the Reliant?
So that's breakdown number 2 for Morgan, doing well here. This only just wants to restart. At idle revs, I have the low fuel warning light coming on. But apart from that, we're good. So this failed to start once. I imagine it will tomorrow. It didn't seem to want to start after we did after restarting with the fuel. I enjoyed that. I can tell you though that I'm not going to enjoy this next bit.
On my radio again. Victimated. No, you just take your time. You go when you're ready and we'll follow.
Right. As soon as we're out, just overtake and I'll sit behind. If possible, if I can have one of you following me, it does kind of make me feel a bit better about the car in case something goes terribly wrong.
Terribly wrong again.
I'm not even dignifying that with a response. You ready?
I'll be behind you.
Oh my god. Alright, want to go for the overtake, guys, because I don't actually know where well, I've got the nav running, but I'll let one of you lead. Right, so I've got 780 in the tank. Right, 780, 250 miles on the tank, so 200 miles. 7, 8, 9, 6500, I need to start looking for more fuel. So by my calculations, I've got about 250 miles in the tank now. Now we've done the bridge, I feel comfortable enough with this to say, so let's go motorways. Yeah, so if we stay together, let's just pick up the motorway and just get there, then let's just get there.
But the motorways might have been a bit too much, as things just couldn't go smooth for us, could they?
One of the things that I really did not want to be doing was driving the Reliant at night time. This was very high on my list of things that I really wanted to avoid. And here we are. Now, this is, of course, of no fault of mine. We didn't leave late because the Reliant was still getting an MOT. So I can't be blamed for any of this and can't be held responsible for any of this. And the other big thing that's happened is that you might notice in the darkness out there that there's nobody in front of me. And you might then think, well, that's very nice that the rest of the guys are all sat with me making a convoy. It's not really how it is. You see, Morgan, amazingly, of all the people I'd have thought to zoom off and leave me stranded, Morgan is behind me, keeping in convoy. Matt and Trev, however, they're gone. They're long gone, in fact. And they've gone for two reasons. Numero uno, they've gone off to try and get to the accommodation to make sure that it is indeed still open and there is a room for when we get there. And number two, I had to pull over. You see, the temperature gauge in the Reliant is somewhat optimistic, and for the entirety of the 6 or 7 hours that we've been driving now, it has been sat just under hot. And from extensive testing before it went for MOT, that's just where it sits. At idle, that's just happy. However, where we are now, it's gone into, well, actually it's gone through and to the other side of hot. And that's concerning because I don't know where it should be.
So we pulled over because the temperature gauge on the Reliant has been getting awfully high, up to and above the H. Normally it sits around here, a bit higher, and on the last bit of the trip it's just been getting hot. And also the low oil pressure lights are coming on. I suspect it's because the engine's getting hot. The oil in it's getting a bit runny. But there we are. I'm going to turn the lights off otherwise. So we're going to sit down, let it cool down, and see if it's okay after that.
So, following our stop and investigation of the Reliant, because one of the things I cleverly packed with me was the little thermogun, the laser heat detecting gun, and me and Morgan have felt everything and shot everything on this little car, and everything appears to be fine temperature wise, which is good. But as it remains completely untested and I don't really know or kind of trust it, and I don't really know where it should be or shouldn't be, we're progressing on slowly. Because that's not the only issue, no. Apart from the over-enthusiastic temperature gauge, the other problem that I have with the car at the moment is if I let the revs drop like that to idle, the low oil light comes on. As long as there's revs, it stays off. And I've checked the oil and it's got oil in it. So I don't know again if I have a catastrophic problem with my engine and oil pressure dropping, or if it's something less bad, like the sensor's gone funny, because obviously it is a Reliant, it's fiberglass, and I have done all the electrics on this myself. There's many things that kind of I envisioned happening, and one of them that I didn't really envision happening and remains very high on my I do not want this to happen list is I really don't want to have to spend the night in the Reliant. I genuinely cannot imagine much worse than trying to spend the night in this. It's not comfortable, and admittedly it is at the moment very warm. The sun has set, it should be dark. The amount of heat coming off the engine, which is by my legs, is I remain relatively toasty. But I don't want to sleep in this. I want a bed. It's been a long day. And I want my car to be okay. I really want my car to be okay.
As the sun rose on day 2 in the Lake District, we nipped into Windermere to grab some much needed supplies for the trip. And some of us even made it back to the accommodation.
So, the observant amongst you might notice there's something missing here. Do any of you want to explain what's happened?
Well, we were heading, not even half an hour away from here. We get a little message from Lawrie saying, it's died. And we all went, Oh no! Anyway,
So-
and have proceeded to amuse ourselves for the last hour and a half.
Yeah, we watched some old F1.
Yeah, the 1995 season.
Yeah.
And we're now going to go and amuse ourselves even more while he sits in an enterprise office being handed stale coffee.
And the keys to a van, because it's a commercial enterprise here. So we're expecting him to turn up in a
He's
van.
going to either end up in a van or something absolutely dreadful.
So, it is a day 2. Day 2 has started without any hitches. Firstly, the battery on this was dead, so I had to roll it out of the car park and bump it into life. The KA wouldn't start, and that had to be jump-started in the rain. And we've all gone our separate ways. Matt and Trev have gone to look for food. Morgan went to look for a battery for his KA, and because this is on its own stupid little battery, well, I had to go somewhere entirely different, which means I've entered an industrial park. Now, yesterday at idle revs, the oil warning switch light was coming on, so I talked to my friend who's an expert, and he went, it's probably just a broken oil release valve, or the sender's a bit twitchy, that if it's just on idle, probably be okay. As I came into the industrial park down the road, it started coming on at medium revs, and then as I came in here, it was just on. So I bumped it on the side of the road, I've dumped it, I've spoken to them, and the basic answer is that's the end of that. So I'm just waiting for the others to respond, and then it's going to be phone recovery on day 2 and send this home, and then work on what's the next stage. I don't really know what to do next. I might get something off the AA, they may give me a courtesy car, or I don't know, we'll go home and come back in the 323.
While Lawrie was broken down, I've fixed my KA.
Yeah, a quick trip to Halford saw it a new battery, so
now
it starts itself.
it starts itself now.
Yeah.
Without assistance from Matthew, and I've also fitted window wipers so I can see.
Those are both quite good things, and the clutch slips less.
Yeah, turns out I think there's a leak where the thermostat housing is, which sort of is exactly right on top of where the gearbox meets the engine, and I think water's just dripping down onto it, because every morning I get clutch slippage, but then the more I drive the car, and it seems to go away.
Excellent.
So
We're all having a whale of a time on this trip then.
exactly. So now I'm actually going to really enjoy it and not have to like fanning about and baby on the throttle and whatnot. I just have to drive it. So I'm pretty chuffed with this now, actually.
Yeah.
The only thing that really doesn't work on the car is the AC.
Which, let's face it, we don't really need at the moment.
Don't need that, so,
Do we ever need it?
well, I like to have it, but you guys are used to not having AC with your old cars, aren't you?
Yeah.
What do you mean? The Merc's great.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
you're Merc. Yeah, I guess you're Merc. But yeah, no, so
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of chuffed, man.
So-
anyway, we're going to go to a museum to amuse ourselves even further.
They've got a speed 12 there. That's all I'm interested in.
Well, they apparently have 3,000 vehicles to look at. 3,000? Apparently so.
That's like more than Lawrie just about.
Yeah.
So yeah, enjoy the rainy Lake District.
Let's go.
So, this is the update. We're here at a garage around the road, the only garage in the entire area who would even contemplate looking at the Reliant, and it was literally around the corner, so I've just driven it here with the low oil pressure, and luckily I've got car cover, so I'm going to be getting something from Enterprise, which may well be a van, because that's all they've got. They're looking for a car, it might be a van. In the meantime, this has developed even more issues like that. And so in order to open it, it's gone back to this really stupid issue it had before. We have to put the key in, twist it around, all the way around, and push it, and now I can open it. So I'm going to take the door cover off for now and fix that. Put that back in, and now that, just like that. And that's my lock mechanism working again, whereas this was seized before because it got the wrong side of that thing, so you're trying to force that up, and all it was doing was jamming itself, or rather, every time you put any force on and push that up to try and push it in, because it was locked, it would just pop out of there. So anyway, that's back together again. It's got a bit of grease on it, so now back into the door. Oh, it has started to rain, and I'm still here, and I have disassembled and reassembled the lock mechanism several times. But now, what I've realised, because it does that if it's not attached, what I've realised it's this. This pops out of this. I undo that one. Then this will come out of there. And it's on a screw thread, so you can adjust it. So every time I do that, I've mucked it up. So I've now screwed it back in. I'm going to turn it a couple more turns in anyway, so this goes all the way across. And that will then, ooh, that feels tight, so we'll go back one. So we'll twist that, and now, nope, that's too far because that's now not going to fully be out. And one more, fully go, put it in there. Perfect, that's right. And now it means that if I use a screwdriver here, excited now because I think I sorted it to the lock like that. If I now push that across, that will lock it and prevent me from opening it. See, so I can't get it, and now put it back. I fixed it. So a recap: the car is knackered. It is raining. The guys are having a lovely time walking around the Motor Route Museum without me, but you'll notice the door is now shut. Which is good because, as I mentioned, it's raining. So I can now safely shut my door and get this. Now, normally I'd be impressed with myself for figuring this one out and fixing it. Normally I'd be like, you've done well, Lawrie. Today, with everything else that's gone wrong, now this has been the tiny bit of goodness that I needed. So now I fixed that, I'm like, well, what else can I fix in the Reliant? So I wait for my vehicle to be ready from behind me, waiting for that phone call. And very happy.
It turned out that the Lakeland Motor Museum was a very good way to spend a morning whilst our colleague was stranded, but the 3,000 exhibits were exhibits, not vehicles, so the numbers had been padded a little bit, but Trev seemed to quite enjoy this, you know, for a little bit. What's happened, Trev?
I've got no power
Why?
because I left my lights on.
So what you're saying is the Starlet is the only car which hasn't had to be jumped?
Yes, because you're not a complete and utter blithering idiot.
Would you like some jump leads?
I would like to be jumped. Yeah, I'll do it now. Okay,
There you go. Job done. No more flat batteries, please.
I am officially an idiot.
Yeah. How many points is that worth, me having to jump you?
Hopefully not many, because I've had about 4.
Hero car!
Whilst I was still waiting for my replacement vehicle, I hopped into one of the other cars so we could go out for an evening meal by the lake to end day 2. So join us next time for Lemons when we see what vehicle I will turn up in. We compare our terrible vehicles and fall off the road.